If some of us seem a little shaken this morning, it's because we got the news just at 8 o'clock that Paul Anders has died. And many of you will know him, and if you didn't know him, you probably would recognize him because he plays music everywhere with everybody. It leaves a huge hole in our local community because he not only was a gifted musician himself, as well as a professor and a mentor and a colleague to people at the university. He was an incredible advocate and mentor to any number of musicians, young, old, in the middle. So it's a big loss. And I think, you know, it's such a shock. What feels right to me right now is I'm going to ring the bell. We're going to hold some silence so that we can all be together. Those of us who know Paul can remember. Those of us who don't know Paul just hold the community in love. And then after a time of silence, the choir is going to sing, instead of the piece that's in your order of service, Bobby McFerrin's 23rd Psalm. So it's not exactly Paul's kind of music, but it's the best we can do last minute. And I think to honor him any other way than music would be off. So we're starting with this teaching because I found it so very helpful. When I reflect on the moments when I've said or done things that I wish in retrospect I hadn't, things that are out of integrity, with the distance of time, I can usually easily identify the Shenpa, the place where I got hooked. For example, a big one for me is I want everyone to like me all of the time. So when someone gets upset with me for something I've done, it triggers feelings of panic and even sometimes defensive words and action. You've misunderstood what I'm trying to do is a favorite. Or I'll go all obsequious and try to make it better. Over time, though, I've discovered that these habitual reactions are not particularly helpful. When I get hooked in that familiar spot, I try to pause and breathe and listen. As Pema Chodron would say, I become curious, both about the energy coming toward me from the other person and about the reasons for my own reaction. Gentle curiosity unhooks the automatic response and creates space to choose. As human beings, we have many attachment points, many locations where we're vulnerable to Shenpa. Hot buttons, pet peeves, insecurities, biases, people and personalities that just rub us the wrong way, things about ourselves that make us uncomfortable or instill feelings of shame or unworthiness. Chodron teaches, and I can attest to the truth of this teaching, that we must meet Shenpa with kindness and gentleness toward ourselves. If we see these places or imperfections as things to be ripped out of our psyche, we give them more power. So the proper approach is a softening, a moving toward the Shenpa. Chodron breaks it into 3 steps. Step 1, acknowledge that you're hooked. That's the hardest one, right? We like to think of ourselves as rational and logical and correct, but we're not. We're creatures of impulse. So acknowledge that you're hooked. Step 2, pause. Take 3 conscious breaths and lean in. Lean into the energy. Abide with it. Experience it fully. Get curious about it. How does it feel in your body? What thoughts does it give birth to? She says, become very intimate with the itch and urge of Shenpa and keep breathing, staying awake and compassionate, interrupting the momentum and refraining from causing harm. Do not speak. Do not act. Just feel the energy. Rather than rejecting the energy, embrace it. This leaning in is very open, curious, and intelligent. One time when my son Daniel was a toddler, I was rushing through his bedtime ritual because I had to get off to a meeting. And all of a sudden he grabbed a hold of my shirt and he wouldn't let go. And I kept trying to pull away. And, you know, Daniel, I gotta go. And then something in my head said, what am I doing? This is my 4-year-old, and he needs me. Who cares if I'm 10 minutes late to a board meeting? And so instead of pulling away, I leaned in, and I figured I'll just cuddle. And the minute I did that, the minute I stopped trying to pull away, the minute I chose to be present and hold him, his hands let go. He kissed me on the cheek, said, "Night, Mommy," rolled over and was asleep in seconds. And I remember that moment when I think about this teaching of leaning in. Children's third step is relax and move on. Just go on with your life so that the practice doesn't become a big deal, an endurance test, or a contest that you win or lose. This is actually my favorite step. There's a gentleness to this work, a gentleness we need to show ourselves. We're not bad because we're creatures of impulse, or because we get hooked. We're just human, and this is how humans work. And each one of us always is worthy of compassion and deep acceptance. So what children refers to as the path of wisdom is the path of discerning right speech and right action. And it relies on these 3 qualities: intelligence, warmth, and openness. And these qualities are just as innate, just as much a part of being human as our tendency to get hooked and to respond habitually, or our tendency to escape or move away from things that make us uncomfortable. I call these 3 things our human superpowers sometimes. What children calls natural intelligence, we might also name our intuition, the still small voice, our better self, our core of wisdom. It's that part of us that knows what is right and true. It's that part of us that if we breathe through our feelings, whether it's pain, grief, overwhelm, whatever, that part of us that knows what to do, not how to solve all of our problems, but the one next thing. I remember once sitting with a woman unexpectedly pregnant with a second child while her first was still under the age of 2. Okay. But then her husband had just been diagnosed with bipolar and had, in his last manic phase, bankrupted them, and they were about to be foreclosed upon in their home and lose their home. But wait, it gets worse. Her mother had stage 4 lung cancer and had just been moved to hospice care. And she'd gotten laid off. So there we were. She comes to me for pastoral care, and I got nothing. I mean, I could arrange for casseroles or give her a little money from the minister's discretionary fund, but seriously. So I just listened and handed her Kleenex and kept her water glass full, and I cried with her and I held her hand. And after sharing all of this, she took a deep breath and said, "Okay, so the first thing I need is to find a job and a counselor." And that was it. That was the moment of her innate intelligence coming through. That capacity to identify what the first thing we need to do in any situation, no matter how complex or difficult. That's what Chodron is referring to as natural intelligence. So, then there's this natural warmth, empathy, compassion, love. The fact that we're social beings. This is another human superpower. We care about each other, and we need to care about ourselves. Because we care, we modify our behavior to avoid causing harm. When I try to diet because I think I should be thinner, I always fail. I'm off the wagon within a couple of days. When I focus on being kind to myself, on nourishing my body, caring for my body, giving it what it needs to be healthy and strong, that's when I'm actually able to make changes and establish healthier habits. Similarly, it's love and caring for other people that motivate us to challenge our own assumptions. It's how we learn and grow and become transformed. Mutual, healthy, accountable relationships are a practice grounded in love. Natural openness is our limitless capacity to learn and change. We are creatures that wonder and investigate and ponder and grow. It's not always easy. In this age of almost limitless information, it can sometimes feel like drinking from a fire hose. So we need to learn to be careful and strategic about what we give our attention to. But still, humans are not successful because we're smart or because we developed opposable thumbs. We're successful because we're so good at adapting. And that capacity to learn and grow and adapt, that is natural openness. There's a way that, as all of us remain faithful to the wisdom path, we're able to come together in new and more balanced ways. We're able to find solutions that we might not be able to find on our own. A blog on Science News reminds us this little piece of history. In 1907, a statistician named Francis Galton recorded the entries from a weight judging competition as people guessed the weight of an ox. Galton analyzed hundreds of estimates and found that while individual guesses varied wildly, the median of the entries was surprisingly accurate and within 1% of the ox's real weight. When Galton published the results, he ushered the theory of collective intelligence, or the wisdom of crowds, into the public conscience. In other words, we're smarter and wiser together than any one person can be. The ways that we come together to learn and compromise and help one another are a birthright gift, just as important and necessary as those we receive as individuals.